Thank you for joining today's InsurTech Zoom conference. My name is Matt Auger. I'm the president of the Central Mass CPCU chapter. I just want to go over a few housekeeping items just to ensure the best experience for everyone that's involved. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to mute your audio during the presentation just to avoid excessive background noise. We can also do that on our end as well. Kathy can handle that with muting. We do encourage questions today. However, we would just ask that you use the chat function during the event for any questions that you'd like to have answered by the panelists today. If you're not familiar with the chat feature in Zoom, all you need to do is simply scroll down your mouse to the bottom of the screen and the toolbar should pop up. On that toolbar is an icon with a word bubble display. You can just click on that. The chat feature should open. Just type your question there. I think you have an option to send it to everybody or to the session host, myself. Either one will work, that's fine. In the interest of time though, we are gonna be answering the questions at the end of the event, but we'll actively monitor the chat function just to see what questions are coming in. If we're unable to get to all the questions today, which is possible, we're gonna be sure to post the answers to those questions on the Central Mass CPCU website, as well as a recording of the event for future reference. So as Kathy mentioned, if you don't wanna have your wonderful face on the Central Mass website, then you may want to turn your camera off. Totally up to you. Please remember, if you did not provide your full first and last name when you logged into the session, you're going to want to provide that to us in order to receive your CE for CPCU credit. Sue's going to provide her email in the chat so you can reach out to her as needed with that information. But with that said, let's meet our panelists today. So I'm going to start off. We'll go I'm going to go in order left to right. So Hugh, you were in first, so you get to start up first. So Hugh Allen, just introduce yourself, give us a little background. We'd love to know about you.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for having me. Hugh Allen, I'm the Innovation Office Manager here at Mafre USA. Let's see, about 19 years of insurance experience. Starting my old days back at Phoenix Life Insurance, and then moved on to work for an agency, SBIA in Worcester, and then came to Mafre about 10 years ago. Had many varying roles here at Mafre, but really focused on digital collaboration and innovation. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of things that I'm working on. We have to maybe leave some specifics out, but yeah, I look forward to everybody's questions, and that's about it.
And I'm on mute. The first time today, that would be me that did it. Excellent. Thank you very much, Hugh. On to our next panelist, Chris Lane from Tarmica. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, good afternoon. Chris Lane, been in the insurance industry about 16 years now. Started off at Electric Insurance up in Beverly, Mass as a general customer service rep, getting licensed. I transitioned over to their agency force for about 3 years before leaving the carrier side to go to the independent agency side for just about 2 years. But I knew my calling was more on the carrier side. And after spending some time at Plymouth Rock in the New Hampshire territory, I joined Mafre as a business development rep for the North Shore, Essex County, Middlesex County for 4.5 years, and joined Tarmica back in June of 2019 as the director of sales.
Excellent, excellent. I think today we're going to have a nice mix of, I know, Tarmica is more related to dealing with the independent agent, not that the carriers don't as well, but the end result of the stakeholder is, and Mafre obviously on the carrier side, dealing direct with insurers and that type of thing. So I think we're going to have a nice dynamic between the two speakers today to go over things. So the first question I have, and this is, to be honest with you, there's probably no right or wrong answer. And if you ask 4 people, you probably get 5 different responses to it. But what is your definition of InsurTech? I mean, it's a very wide open question, but let's start we'll start with Hugh on that. So from your experience, what's your definition of InsurTech?
Yeah, I like to look at things a little bit more simply. And I think the definition of InsurTech is really the capabilities that evolve the customer or the ecosystem experience within insurance.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Hugh said, I think at Tarmica, we've kind of taken a different approach to InsurTech. We're in that space, but we've tried to focus more on, we call it indie tech. So really, designated for the independent agent. How can we improve their efficiency and then increase their distribution with their existing carrier base. One thing I feel like InsurTech is such a broad subject, and kind of in our space where you see some rating companies, you see a lot of MGAs, a lot of wholesalers or direct to consumer. And we've kind of taken that independent agent approach only, where we're just focusing on increasing the efficiencies within the independent agent.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I mean, it can mean many different things. It is very general. It's a very overarching term, and it could be from a company's side. It could be one thing versus on the independent agency relationship or the APIs that you work with your carriers. Mm-hmm. That could be a little different. But just we'll get a little bit more into that. So for Chris, a question for you is, how, in your view, how will InsurTech fit into the distribution model of the future, and how is it disrupting the current distribution channel, if at all?
Yeah. So we get asked that a lot when we're talking to companies, and how is this going to disrupt the current model? And one thing that we've prided ourselves on is not to disrupt how agents do their business. We're, I just said it previously, but we're looking for them to increase their efficiency and just make it easier for them. So every agency is built off a foundation. We're not coming in to change the way a carrier rates business or how an agency rates business. We're just trying to improve that, where you're not going to do a $1,400 bot policy for, the stamp store, down on Main Street. We're just making it a little bit easier for you. You enter it in once and not have to go to 3 different carriers, do duplicate entry, across all of those carriers, and then maybe find out that, 3 of those companies decline the risk for whatever reason. We've really tried to streamline that process and help agents expose themselves to other markets that they have. Because, I've seen on the business development side, when you're trying to, find ways to write more business, agents have their favorites. I was guilty of that on the agency side when I worked there. I had my 2 favorite carriers that it was just path of least resistance. So if there's a way for us to give some exposure to, Hanover insurance for liquor stores. I had one agent that was writing them all with Norfolk and Dedham, and he's like, I've written 4 liquor stores with Hanover, in the last 2 months. This has been, helpful for me because I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. So it's really helped kind of create an awareness within the agency of the markets they have and what the appetites look like.
Yeah, that path of least resistance is very interesting, because at Mafre we have 2 customers. We have actually multiple customers, many customers. One could be the agent, obviously, then we have the policyholder. But that path of least resistance is so important to develop and to learn about and to survey and to gain a better understanding of what the problems are out there. Because it's our opinion that InsurTech can alleviate some of those, and then it's obviously operational process, the evolution of how that process works out that can relieve the rest. Or in some cases, there's a value to sometimes having that piece there. So very, very interesting how they connect, but how InsurTech really focuses in on those pieces can be not those not those huge pieces that involve, the entire ecosystem all with one swipe. It's the tiny little incremental developments that InsurTechs can do that is so great that small segments can take advantage of, is really what we're looking at very closely now in Mafre.
Yeah, and kind of going along that line, Hugh, I'm going to stick with you on this if I could, because, kind of the same question that Chris had, but maybe a little bit different, just because obviously the relationship. But how do you think InsurTech would change how carriers interact with their customers through the customer experience now and in the future? And how do you think this would lead to, or do you think it would lead to disruption on the carrier side?
I do think that it will and is leading to disruption on the carrier side, absolutely. And that can come down to anything with the access of big data to the access of maybe even hardware. So, so inevitably, our goal at Mafre is to grow profitably, and also to have our operations so efficient that we can not only draw down on the costs of our insurance policies, but also to deliver more bang for your buck. And it's through InsurTech where you can develop those add-ons by understanding who your customer is and hopefully will be in the future, and who you're targeting in the future, where you can start to paint a really good menu or adoption test, utilizing some of those items, like anything from IoT to things that involve artificial intelligence, to make the life of the customer, including the agent, including the disruption of digital with the agent, easier. And I think that's playing a role. It's been playing a role in the last, I would say, between 5 and 10 years from a carrier level, and it's absolutely going to play a major role in the future.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just going back a few years ago, back to my time at Mafre in the innovation unit, and it's interesting, some of the things when we talk about the umbrella of InsurTech. You mentioned, AI and all that type of things, but there are also all sorts of the Internet of Things, the technology that's coming up. Things like we were talking about, geez, wouldn't it be great to have sensors built into your plumbing or whatever it is, that if you have a leak in the system, all of a sudden the sensor kicks, lets the agent know, or lets whoever know, the police department, the fire department, instantaneously. And these are the types of things, obviously, that you need big investment on. So this is where carriers come into play, or insurance in general. Just to actually not to share any company secrets on your part, of course, but these are the types of things, those type of things. Are you working on those or looking into those year end, Hugh?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're taking a look at a lot of those IoT options that are out there. I would say that anytime that we can alleviate a stressful moment, whether in the our policyholder eyes or with our agent, is something that we're really, really focused on. We're not after those big shiny objects, but you'd be surprised how efficiently you can create a partnership, from a monetary standpoint, to deliver these types of opportunities to our customers. And that's really what we're focused on now. With the average water loss, I believe nationwide was $6,500. That's obviously a slam dunk to focus on. But there are other opportunities, within the homeowners, as well as you said, sensors within an automobile, a fleet, where we're also focused on to see if there's any type of appetite for our market that we're focused on for our end user customer now at Mafre. But then again, all those learnings correlate to opportunities for additional market understanding, and then inevitably maybe opportunities to attract different markets.
Yeah, and something that I think goes on along your vein too, Chris, at Tarmica. I mean, the efficiency or the ability to speed things up using technology, or speeding, an agent's way to get to multiple markets and that type of thing. The interaction. So I think it's pretty amazing when you think of the technology that's popping up quickly. People talk about the singularity and all that too. But
just on the technology part of it too, we there's one part of our business where we integrate with carriers, right, through an API, and we've seen it across the board with a lot of carriers. What's an API? So I mean, there's that question that comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's and there's different versions of it. There's an internal one, there's an external one, and then all of the back end companies, your Guidewires, your Duck Creeks, your Insurities, all have some sort of process. But we've helped quite a few carriers build out their API too. So if they're not ready, but want to increase their distribution, we can walk them through giving them an API guideline, which we create for them. It's universal. So if they want to use it on another platform or something like that, we give them free reign on that. And kind of what I went back to earlier is we want the independent agent channel to thrive. So if we can help a carrier with their development of an API, we're only helping out them, and we're helping out the greater good in the independent agent channel.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
yeah, Chris and Matt, just to add one little quick note. One of the things that we're finding with some of these smaller vendors, smaller startups, is that they're offering their APIs through a sandbox.
Yeah.
So we don't need to even have an agreement. We can just go out through Google and obtain just some line of code to play around with ourselves on our personal time to see, hey, does this have lift here? Do we like this experience? Or does this even call to action work? And that type of, you really know who you're working with by those vendors who offer it and who don't. And just to harp on a little bit of what Chris said before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a competitive space too. I mean, especially now. So, I'm sure there's a lot of those companies that are doing that, trying to get people to use it, thinking that, hey, once they try it, they're going to want more of it, that type of thing. So it definitely makes sense. So this actually sparks another question that, that we had, and I think is an interesting one. And we'll go with Chris first on this one. Do you feel, or do you think, is the human element lessened with the growth of insured tech? So looking at on your end from an independent agent working with the carrier, underwriters deal with the CSRs, all that type of thing. So I guess the question would be, does this lessen that relationship? What do you feel on that?
Yeah, it's funny. I got asked that same question by an agency the other day, and for us, I mentioned it earlier. We're not trying to change the foundation of what an agency does. We've had a couple of different variations of how our platforms helped, some clusters, some networks, things like that, where they have a centralized quoting. So you may have agents that don't have access to markets, but the master agency does. And we've improved the efficiency there, but those agents are still needing to quote that business. So it's not really changing that whole model, because at the core, you still need to interact with your underwriter, with the CSR at the company. We're just kind of getting that information in there quicker. And an interesting statistic that I've seen from the data that we pull is, unlike personal lines, it's not premium driven. So we're not seeing the lowest premium bound all the time through our platform. We don't offer binding, but our carriers report back to us what started in our platform that eventually got bound. Our stat is 19.4% of business quoted through us has gone to the lowest premium. Because I think it comes down to, and I've used Mafre for this example in the past, because, we allowed, or, when I was there, we had streets and roads for plowing operations, which, some other carriers didn't write. And, living in New England and, Massachusetts is their commercial lines, state, you run into that a lot with landscapers and, some of those artisan trades that do plowing in the off season. That's a selling point, so you still need to go through your underwriter to like, hey, it's 21 parking spots. And so it's one spot over the 20, guideline. Is this something we can do? And, and we thought about that when we were developing the platform is, how can our agents interact with their underwriters? So we have an underwriting feature in our platform where you can go ahead and email your underwriter right from our platform. You can attach documents to it. So if you need loss runs, or, if you're quoting a small restaurant and they want a picture of the kitchen, you can upload those documents and send the email right to your underwriter. You also get a copy of that email back so you can attach it to your management system. So if you're, pending it for future follow-up, you have that documentation in there. So, I mean, we from the beginning have just tried to improve the efficiency of an agency by 10, 15% in a given day, and that equates to time and equates to money.
Yeah, the reason we have this question, of course, we all hear it's a relationship business. So
Yep.
And I'm not surprised, agents, it'd be the question I'd have if I were an agent. You kind of build that relationship with a company and you're like, geez, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose that? Or so I think it is, one of the reasons we wanted to kind of go over that. But it's good information, especially on the Tarmika end of it. So I'll shoot this over to Hugh, though, because I think, too, there's also an element of this on the carrier side, too, because I think, obviously, depending on what you have for, well, I'll use a good example because I previously had Mafre insurance. I don't now, but don't yell at me. But I'm
keeping score.
Yeah.
I still have my auto policy, if that counts.
Very good.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so I'll deal with that, the blowback on that later. But one thing I'll remember though, one of the things that was interesting, I remember when I had my policy, they sent me I'm sure it was an automatic email, but it came through and said, "Hey, welcome to Monterey, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we see, we see you have your Lincoln insured with us." So, those are some of the things I look and I say, again, is the human element lessened on the carrier side, or maybe the opposite? Maybe you feel it's actually going the other direction. So I wanted to give this one to Hugh too, to get your input on it.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about this for hours, but I'll keep it to kind of three main.
It was 45 minutes. Will be good.
No, to three main points. So, with that email video you received a couple of years ago, where it said, "Welcome to Mafre. We love having you as an insured," and it showed you maybe a picture of a canned picture of a Lincoln or something like that.
I think it was a picture of me. It was very skinny. I liked it.
I mean, one of the things that Mafre was after was that really positive relationship experience. The handshake. So you may have had a handshake with your agent because they were the ones who sold you the policy, but then they become the face of that insurance policy or that protection, and we offer a lot from Mafre, and we love to be in front of the customer as well as the agent. But we act in a way here at Mafre where we see everything as assisting those adjusters, assisting those call center reps. Because I believe Chris said before, what was the percentage you gave based on the number of policies that went to the kind of the lowest bid?
19.4%.
Yeah. So what we want to make is everybody as efficient as possible and as highly kind of not only efficient from a quality standpoint, but from an opportunity standpoint. And right now we're going through a lot of projects that use natural language processing, machine learning, AI, to make each individual have the highest quality that they can. And not only that is we are also letting the customers choose how they interact with us, whether it be email, text, letter via pigeon. But we want to ensure that every single one of those interactions it goes as well as it can. And that's what we're using the technology for. But I want to focus on, we're seeing it as an enablement of not only a Mafre employee, but specifically, and soon to come, a lot of hopefully great announcements, how we plan on enabling our agents as well, with the onslaught of that digital direct that seems to be hitting Massachusetts as well.
Excellent. So you have it sounds like you have a few projects in the works, and it's again utilizing technology to kind of bring that to the masses. It sounds like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing that came up, and of course, I mentioned the singularity in passing before that people talk about, but I think it's important to bring up just how fast technology is changing now. I mean, I was just looking at possibly getting an update in my car because I got a 2015 vehicle, and I'm looking at vehicles now, and I'm like, what doesn't the thing do for me? I can push the button, the car goes back and forth, itself, So one of the things I wanted to kind of go over with you guys, and we'll start with Hugh on this one. What are some future innovations that you think InsurTech can drive that will change how carriers and agents do business together now and in the future? So stuff down the road that you envision to say, this is what we're doing now. However, our 5-year plan is X, or this is the products that we envision down the road.
I first start off with data and the security of data, and inevitably the sharing of data when it's okay, it's approved by everybody, and when it can cause some type of an enhancement of an experience. This insurance has become a real data play, as we all know, and the analytics and the advanced analytics teams that we have currently at Mafre are showing models where we can even ask less questions at quote, yet still understand our risk maybe even better. Acquisition understanding who is coming to our door and asking for quotes through agents or direct, and why, what is their intent, is also very interesting. And finally, you know, we have a couple projects here that are really focusing on when is the right moment to have a conversation with whom and how. And that can add a really enhanced experience of not only trust with your insurance company, but also trust in terms of they understand that your time is valuable on. And that's within the entire ecosystem. And again, that's not even touching on the claims process, where we've seen great advances in terms of letting people know when their car is ready and an omni-channel experience. Also, you know, driving individuals to specific types of, garages with specific types of performance. A lot of opportunities there. But a big play does come in. What's in your home to make it optimized? You have Nest. What else are you willing to have there in order to not only reduce risk, but reduce complexity within your home and within your family? And I would say that is the second biggest option. So first, data, and then it's, I guess, customer experience enhancement.
Interesting. I mean, it is, I kind of sometimes wonder, like, on your end, Hugh, because again, you know, you're doing a lot of the innovation type stuff for Mafre right now, and kind of things that are coming in the future. Do you envision carriers interacting differently with their insureds by and large through some of these things? Like you mentioned, Nest is a good one. I mean, a lot of this stuff, you know, I have the Alexa device in my house, so of course Amazon hears everything I do, no doubt. But you know, I mean, have you looked or even considered kind of, again, I don't want to get company secrets out, but have you had thoughts about interacting with those providers to provide new products, or is something like that things they're not really looking at as of yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's opportunities at play there to for low cost, low effort, to understand how you can play with those markets where adoption is high. So let's take Alexa. Well, let's start from the top. Mafre USA is just one of the innovations offices for Mafre worldwide. So there are many projects. So I may be working on, I think I have 27 opportunities that I'm working on right now. But as Mafre innovation as a whole, 46 countries, et cetera, a lot of them playing a part in innovation, there's a huge book of business that's out there. So yeah, we're looking at how via an Alexa, you can just say, pay my insurance. Super simple. Well, super simple idea.
Yep.
It may be hard to, but yeah, there's a number of different plays out there that allow, again, from that customer experience approach, how can we follow the non-insurance process? So Amazon has changed the world because it's so easy to buy something, but we can learn a lot about what we like about Amazon and transfer that with our customer experience, with our customer journey, to say, hey, where can we add capabilities within our customer journey where we can alleviate stress and provide opportunities for both the agents and the customers to have an easier time working with us. Quote, obviously, is one of those main focus points right now.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you talk about Amazon and people have changed things. In some ways, it's changed, I think, you know, how insureds, or I should say, have adjusted maybe their expectations of what they expect from companies. And we'll get into this with Chris too. No worries. I'm harping on poor Hugh right now. But you know, it's interesting because, you know, Amazon, I got it in 2 days, sometimes less than that. Sometimes you can get things the same day. But you know, it's really interesting, and I do tend to wonder if down the road, you know, get this, the more we're looking for instant satisfaction, gratification, instant results, how this is going to kind of tie into that. And the companies that aren't tied into it, you know, and you know, the old model of, well, I'll get you a quote in 30 days or 15 days or whatever. I mean, you know, it's kind of, I don't know if those are really going to stay around for a long period of time. So, yeah, no, I appreciate that, Hugh. So I want to shoot this over to Chris though too.
I'm going to actually chime in on what you said about, you know, kind of that instant gratification. the cool thing about whether it be agents or the carriers, they're like Hugh said, they're looking for ways to improve that process. And we have one carrier that's joining the platform soon where, for them, it's a business play too, but for their agents, it's enter in some information, have an API call, early on in the quote flow. So after you select your business classification, enter in the business information, they're giving the agent an opt-out. So they're going to say, here's a bindable rate before you even enter in, your BPP on it. And they're saying, from all the third-party data that we collect, we feel comfortable for this, CPA office that we're relatively in the ballpark, and we're going to say it's a bindable quote. So, I mean, that carrier in particular is doing some really cool advanced stuff with, the third-party data that they're collecting. And there's a few others that are out there too, willing to do, quote bind issue, right from the start, whether it be on a direct side or through an agent, through a platform like ours. So, I mean, it's really advancing. And there's a lot of carriers that are on the forefront that are really looking at it. And some are, I feel like they're all in the same bucket. There may be a few that are a little bit more ahead, but not by much. Everyone's kind of, I don't want to say on a level playing field, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
So it's great for the industry that, they're getting the data scientists, they're getting, advanced engineers to manipulate some of this stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny you mention that because, you think about it. You mentioned the accountant office. I mean, by and large, an office risk, just in Paul or anyone with the chapter that's an underwriting can probably speak to this. But your regular office risk, a small one like that, they usually have about the same limits. So it's an interesting idea to say, hey, all of them based on our data that we're showing have about 35,000 BPP and blah, blah, blah. And it's a low hazard class. So it kind of lends itself to coming up with a quick, hey, boom, it's going to be $500, because they usually are until you get over like 15, 20K or whatever it is in BPP. So that's definitely an interesting eyeball on it, or an interesting take on it. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, jump in here.
Chris, just to add a little element to the fun of some of my job. It's really interesting though, where you find a lot of the players in InsurTech, maybe the data players may be on the same, playing field.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun when you find one of those InsurTechs who are like outside the stadium, who are working on something that's like so different or unique in the way that they could package it, where it gives you a significant lift. We had a couple of those this last year, which were really unique kind of offerings that we're working on, kind of prioritizing for production. And when you can do that, it not only sets a competitive advantage, but it offers an additional surprise and delight to a customer that's even outside of those expectations from Amazon. And those are the kind of the home runs. There aren't many. Often they fail quick because it's a good story. It has no backing.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there's some meat on the bone.
Well, from the carrier side, from your end, and then on my side, I get geeked up when I see an agent that's got this, pie in the sky idea, but he's workshopped it out. And, we have one guy in Utah who's doing it for franchise businesses, so, there's not much out there for, a Napa auto store part, Napa auto parts. And this guy's got it down, through a franchise management system, or, we hear about the guy that wants to automate certificates, and, it's amazing to see what agents are capable of.
Yep.
And same thing with the carriers. It's great to see what the carriers are capable of.
I love how that niche play is really driving innovation.
Yep.
Because when you play the niche play, you only have to prove that it's valuable from an adoption standpoint to that niche. Not everyone. You can't build for everyone. And I think, we've learned a lot of lessons on that and love it. But yeah, take a look at, Nike started by designing a tennis shoe.
Yeah.
That was the sole focus. And look at where they are now. It takes discipline, it takes resolve, and it takes a lot of ingenuity to grow out of that niche. But that niche where you become a challenger is really a good spot to play in. And that really kind of describes my job a little bit more, a little bit further, in terms of how I've actually, collaborated with a lot of people who are on this call at Mafre, within those like little niche opportunities, whether it be a market, whether it be a communication, whether it be a piece of a hardware, or whether it be also like a data play. For whatever reason, this company has the capability of getting a piece of data that makes them inherent good, brings value to the customer. So that's a good call.
I mean, like we're doing some stuff with Aureus Analytics, and we've just been, in awe about what they're gathering and kind of what they're doing, and trying to find a way to integrate our data into theirs to help the carriers, help the agents. So I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there that we get excited about every day when we get an opportunity to talk to someone from one of these companies, and it's what makes this job fun.
Yeah. And before we get too much further, because I know for a fact there's at least one or two people on here, and I would have been including this up to about, I don't know, ago, that want to know what in God's name is an API. So I'll let either one of you take that. I'm assuming we got at least one out there that's wondering what that is, because I mean, I was in that boat. There we go, Paul.
Yeah.
Someone's admitting it. I like it.
So, Hugh, you can probably give a more technical description of it, but the way I've always explained it is, think of it like a handshake, right? So you're passing your data via handshake to someone else, and it's coming back. So, or either getting on and off ramp, right? So you get off, you get back on. The way we do it is we're collecting all the data through our end, and it's application programming interface. And we're sending the data to the carrier, and then they're sending it back to us. So it's just kind of that in between. We sit on top of the carrier's proprietary rating system, whether it be a Duck Creek, a Guidewire. We're just kind of sitting on top of their proprietary platform.
Yeah, Chris, great job. So basically,
is that the Webster Dictionary you got there, Hugh?
I'm still a pencil and paper note guy.
Oh, okay. I thought you had the actual dictionary. I was waiting for that.
No, but basically exactly what Chris said. So there's a communication, the next communication communication between, let's say, Tarmika and Mafre, which is going to happen soon, right? And the cool thing is firewalls, right? So the APIs define what the communication strategy is between, info security and exactly what that communication is about. But also there's a secondary piece to it, which is like you have like a service layer, right? Where you have both Guidewire and like for Mafre, like Guidewire and legacy systems. Guess who doesn't care about those? The customer, right? The agent certainly does, because download and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. But an API basically will allow like a proper API, and this is probably not technically right as well, but from a high level, just allows you to expose your services layer so you can communicate internally through less code. So you don't have to write the same communication from each legacy system, if that makes sense. But really where we're evolving Mafre USA soon is like the microservices capability, which allows us to extend like a customer interaction. And we're not defined by the system that's prompting that interaction, if that makes sense. So we could send out a payment screen to both, our system that works in Massachusetts and our system that works in California. So that capability. So the API is really between two different companies, but it could be internally as well. So it gets fun.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good. That's far better than what I would have given for an example. So I think I remember when I was talking to someone about it, like, well, Matt, essentially it's how one person gets the information to the other person and hooks up. I'm like, okay, I think I'm good with that. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting. There's always, in some ways, how agents utilize our systems. That's not a perfect example, but it's that, as you said, it's that object of trying to get data from one person to another in the handshake, so that you can actually do that correctly and accurately. So yeah, no, it's good stuff. I don't know, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, Chris, because I don't know if I asked you, but are there any future innovations that you see on your end in InsurTech that you think will change how you do business, as Tarmica with independent agents or carriers? Is there anything that you see, and also too, how will this change with the new normal post-COVID? I forgot to ask Hugh that, but I'm kind of curious because obviously with COVID, I mean, our company, we're an older mutual, but we had to figure out how to get people remote ASAP, and it led to a lot of good innovation on our end and changes, for the good. So just want to hit that one over to your way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Hugh hit the nail on the head with the data. So part of our last, we've done private funding rounds. We haven't gone the VC route, anything like that. But part of our last raise was focused solely on data. So we partnered with a company called SciSense that does a data dashboard. And very interactive, very customizable. So when we work with some larger agencies, your Gallagher's of the world, your Hubs of the world, they have, specific requests for data. So, what state is quoting dentist offices, which producer is quoting what, how do we break it down? How do we look at a classification support gap with a carrier? So, acuity's been quoted 100 times, but they've been out of appetite, 20 times. So we're tracking a lot of data, one to help the agent maybe develop that niche into, hey, we're writing a lot of, CPAs or attorneys. We're going to go to CNA for that and try to develop a program. So we're trying to help the agent with their existing data that they haven't had before on small business. There's not a lot of information on small business. And then in turn, we're putting it back to the carrier. So now the carrier has an opportunity to look at, what's this agency doing who's got, multiple state exposure. One of the things that I harped on when we were doing this data analysis and how we were crafting it is carriers always have a need to know about their clusters and their aggregators. So that's always been one of those things of, I get a monthly report that's rolled up, and then I can see my individual agencies that roll up into that master code. But, what are the characteristics of that agency? We may be paying them an override because they're part of that cluster, yet they have $50,000 on the books. So that agency that just joined whatever cluster is losing us money. So we're trying to provide insights into the carrier, to start working with these, clusters and aggregators to try to improve the overall results. So data is the big thing for us, and just, across the board, trying to improve our product every day. We've had some good innovation from carriers, but, consistently working on our questions. How do we aggregate those supplementary underwriting questions? How do we have the best user experience possible? Those are our daily tasks, and we consistently source feedback from our agency partners, either individually or through our agency advisory council on, what's going on in the market and what can we do to change it.
Do you, and I'll jump back to you on this too, Hugh, because I forgot to ask you, my apologies, but I'll stick with Chris for a second. Do you, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Number one, do you feel COVID helped or hurt you as far as opportunities or developments? And number two, do you think, again, going back to the new normal, as it were, that's going to be a benefit to you, or do you think that's led to, well, I don't want to get into our next question, but do you think that's led to more opportunities or potential opportunities?
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer this in two parts. So when COVID hit, we were still, January, February, we were still kind of a concept. We'd released our new, version 2. We were starting to do the industry events and getting to network with people, but we still didn't have the carrier distribution that a lot of our agencies were looking for. And then we didn't have enough agents that the carriers were looking for. Once COVID hit, we had a lot of company people that we needed to work with that weren't on the road anymore. They weren't traveling. They had a bunch of calendar space to fill up, and they took meetings with us just to kind of inquire about us, maybe get them off our back. We were consistently emailing them, calling them. And they took a meeting, and as we went through it, a lot of them saw it as, hey, this isn't, as much of a time commitment as we thought. So, that actually helped us. COVID was kind of a silver lining from a carrier adoption standpoint. And then from the agency side, the first month and a half was, a little shaky. As you mentioned, agencies or, carriers too had to develop a work from home plan. You have, your 100-year-old agency that's been doing business the same way, for years. That's a big adjustment for them. And I think a lot of them have seen that it's not so bad, and they've started looking at other technologies. And it's been helpful for us. We had a great, 2020, pretty much the third and fourth quarter was great from a production standpoint. And then even a quote standpoint, we're averaging about 2.1 million in quoted premium through the platform. This month, we're going to be well over 4 million. So COVID was actually kind of a blessing in disguise for us, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, I think it kind of fits hand in hand with, the use of technology, and people have had to go out, use it more often now than they were used to in the past. But I'll shoot that back to Hugh, because I forgot to ask you about the COVID piece. So if you want to add anything on to that, by all means.
The major piece for Mopfre, obviously frequency is down. Makes sense. Driving is down. Obviously that risk is down, but I'll come back to that in a second. We're all now communicating on Zoom. We would have never done this prior to COVID. The amount of digital data pre-COVID versus COVID has increased 800% out there in the market. The market is the internet of everything, right? Mm-hmm. My mom now texts me and FaceTimes me.
Is that good or bad?
I mean, I enjoy it, I guess. I mean, it is what it is.
It's not the in-laws, right?
Yeah, but she's meeting me on my turf now, which is kind of cool. Yeah. Guys, this is just the start of it. We're not going to go back, right? This is the new normal now. Now, what people take, so they say it takes 12 weeks to learn or to create a routine. It takes 12 minutes to break it. I think that's like the old adage. I don't know about this. I think people are going to still use Instacart. I still think that people are going to use Zoom. I have never talked to my friends from college who live all over the world more since COVID.
Yep.
It's actually pushed me to embrace this technology more than ever. So long story short, sure, we had to hand out a bunch of Chromebooks in the parking lot and get the people who needed the material to effectively support Mopfre. We did that. We're still working through some of those challenges, but so is everybody.
Yeah.
The key there, though, is our customers. Do they believe that they still are getting the value for their premium when they're driving 70% less? The key there is our customers who have been in an accident. Do they feel safe going to a physical therapist? Right? The key there is I do everything on my phone now. I want to be able to sign that application on the phone. The other key there is I literally have driven, I normally drive 18,000 miles a year, let's say. I literally have put 2,500 miles on my car. Am I the same risk as before? These are the questions that we're asking. These are the disruptors that are out there from an insurtech standpoint that are harping on it. And here's where Mopfre is going to play a very interesting role in what we learn from that. And then let's say we all get shots in the arm and we're back to the new normal. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of work from home happening even after that, right, guys?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing that maybe next year when we have the same conversation, it probably may go through Zoom because it'll be both Zoom and internal, Zoom and in person, I should say.
Yep.
So we need to start thinking about things a little differently. That we're not going just back to those rock and roll concerts that we had in 2019. Things are going to change. Things are going to change for the better, and things are just going to change, and we have to be okay with that. And insurance is going to follow. We're not going to lead. It's just that's just how we are.
Yeah, it's true. We've never been overly dynamic. Well, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, never been really the innovators of an industry. Yeah, as far as insurance goes, that's true.
Yep.
We got our 10-minute warning. I got one other question. I want to motor. Well, I don't know if I have time because I want to leave some time for questions. You know what? We'll skip the last question because we got about 5-6 minutes. Really quick, I was just going to ask about challenges you see on the horizon for InsurTech and the acceptance of change. And I think actually we discussed a bit of that too. You just went over a bit of that now, Hugh, with insureds, and how likely are they to accept these different ways of doing business? And in some cases, I think, they're going to have to in a way, because like you said, people may see the technology, use it, and actually now be more accustomed to it. But I'm going to gloss over that because I don't want to miss the chance to ask questions. I took a look. We don't have any in our chat currently. So either you guys did an unbelievable job or people are just worried about asking a question. But I want to put it out there really quick. We got about 5 minutes, I believe, right now on the clock. We can go a little over, that's fine too. But I want to just open it up to everyone on the Zoom. If you have any questions, by all means, this is probably a good time. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, I would just say, we got a few minutes. So just, if we can't get to the question, don't worry. We will, as I said, answer it, put the answer on our website for you. We want to try to get to them. Do we have anyone in particular that would like to ask a question? Boy, you guys did pretty good, you and Chris. Either that, we put a bunch of people to sleep, one of the two. Oh, we got one coming in. Oh,
I got a quick one, guys. All right.
Yeah,
just a real quick one, Matt. As part of the innovation lab, you made a comment that you had like 25 things going at a time. What just changes from concept to implementation? What's your success rate or failure rate?
Really good question. So that's for me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So think about it in three. You got 3 boxes. You have opportunities, you have concepts, then you have proof of concept / pilots / things that you're actually working on. So you may have a number of different opportunities that you're watching, that you're evaluating, that you're taking a look at. Do I have a really good use case that drives value based on profitable growth or operational efficiency? And it's one thing for me to take 10 hours of my time to research something, to have a couple phone calls with a vendor, and then say, you know what, this isn't for us right now, versus a full-blown waterfall project that's $28 million. We just don't do that anymore. So I can feel very confident by saying we have 27 plus opportunities / concepts / pilots that are out there. But really what it gets down to is by the time it gets to you're ready to seal the deal on a small agreement for $20,000 with a proof of concept that ensures Paul Drennan can right click on his mouse on a Tuesday and that it delivers what it needs to. Our success rate is just over 50%. I guess if that answers the question. And that's where we want to be. We also want to, in some cases, reach for the stars a little bit to push ourselves, because it's all about learnings. It may not necessarily be that end product, which is super cool, guys, which is the dream, which is the shiny object, but it's also learning and being okay with failing. That really kind of is innovation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll just throw this in there really quick too. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, which I'm sure both you, Hugh, and Chris can say. I mean, I tell it to my team all the time. To do something right and do it well and succeed is not easy. I mean, it just isn't. I don't think. This is my own opinion, and people could disagree. It usually takes a lot of hard work. It usually takes a lot of dedication. But invariably, usually when you add those things in, that's where you get the success. So I'll just throw that in there on my end. But
Yeah, Matt, it's okay to change the story.
yeah.
Don't take it personally, because guess what? Your first story probably sucked.
Yeah. I've had a few doozies, trust me. You.
Yeah, but guess what? That end story, you got battle scars.
Oh yeah.
But guess what? You have the answers, and you may not have the answers for your effort, but you certainly may have the answers to help Sue or Kathy or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is the beautiful part about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we've thrown so much against the wall to see what sticks. And I mean, even looking at our first version of the platform and to what it is today, I mean, it was trial and error for the first, 9 months. And even now, I mean, we're something simple as a mailing address, the way it's in the experience of what our agent's going to use. And, if we don't like it, we change that. I mean, it's little things too, so, just like you said, you get a bunch of battle scars, but it's only improving the process.
Endless hair. I'll go with that too. And more wires.
No, we're starting up here.
Yeah, I see it, Chris. It's coming. Pretty soon you're going to, yeah, exactly. It's much less maintenance. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a good question by Paul. Any other questions anyone has? I didn't see any pop in. I will say though, really quick, you might have seen it from Sue in your chat function. Sue did provide her email. So Sue Scavera. So if you did not provide your full first and last name when you entered in, just shoot her an email with it, just so we can get you the CE for CPCU credit. But I just want to draw your attention to that. But any other questions for Chris or Hugh? Oh, geez.
Excellent.
I think you guys did a great job, it looks like. No questions. I mean, I'll just end really quick. I'll just say, hey, thanks so much, both Hugh and Chris, for joining us today. I know it's taken an hour every day. I know you guys are busy. And thank you for all the people that attended today. It's not easy to take an hour to do anything nowadays, it seems. It's not work related. So we sincerely appreciate it. The chapter appreciates it. I hope everyone that attended today, at least they got something a little bit different or something to think about that they may not have thought about before they came into this event. So thanks so much, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.